This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome in, folks, to another edition of Open Mic Night, the first of this 2023 calendar year. I am your host, Noah Taluki, and on this episode, the Detroit Lions with a big 41-10 victory over Chicago. Pretty much a winner-take-all situation on Sunday Night Football in Green Bay. That is if the Seattle Seahawks can lose to the Los Angeles Rams, Baker Mayfield and the Los Angeles Rams. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Bears game, and we'll talk about this Sunday Night Football game with the Packers as well. Also, what exactly happened to Michigan football last week on New Year's Eve? Well, I want to talk about that, and then some of this allegations that Harbaugh is facing with some recruiting violations and all that, and some NFL rumors that are starting to spread about him possibly returning back to the National Football League as well. But like I mentioned, hopefully everyone had a great New Year's, and it feels great to ring in the new year finally. And a lot of great moments in 2022. I'm sure we'll see a lot of great ones in 2023. I thought about doing some like sort of New Year's resolution kind of thing with all of our different teams here in Detroit, but I really want to focus on the Lions and Michigan. And before I talk about the Lions, though, I don't want to talk about it too much, but the sad situation in Buffalo with Damar Hamlin. Really good to see that he's still that he looks like he's responding and he's getting better each day as well. But just wanted to mention him because he went to Pittsburgh Central Catholic in Pittsburgh, and I knew a couple guys at John Carroll that actually played football with him and kind of knew him. There's a lot of Pittsburgh people at John Carroll and all that. So. As soon as that happened, and I started thinking about all the other guys, that played with him and whatnot, and I just texting with them and all that. They were just very, very devastated, but very happy now that he's finally able to come back, from this life-threatening injury, basically. So, it's good to see that he's in good spirits now, and he's continuing to fight and getting better every day. So just scary moment. I saw it live when it happened on Monday Night Football, but like I said, hopefully he just keeps getting better every day. All right, so this Lions news, 41-10. I mean, I gotta say, I know there's a lot of people out there that are saying, oh, SOL, Lions are going to lose to the Packers, blah, blah, blah. Guys, I think it's pretty obvious this year that, so even if the Lions don't make the playoffs this year, it's pretty obvious that this is not the same old Lions anymore. I like to call it BNL, brand new Lions. How often have we seen, let's just take it, and I've told you guys before, let's take it back to when my fandom began, which I would date circa 2009, when Matthew Stafford was drafted by the Lions. How often have we gotten a dominant win, a very dominant victory, like we did on Sunday? Not only one, but multiple. Beat the Jaguars 40-10, and they're in a divisional race right now with the Titans. I mean, at the time of recording, I don't know who won that game or not, but they had that dominant victory. They had a dominant victory against Washington in week 2. There were a couple other, a dominant road victory against the Giants. I mean, we have not seen multiple dominant victories for this team in a very, very long time. I like what the Lions PR staff does. They put out some, historic stuff, and if guys break records of stuff, and a lot of it throughout the entire season, a lot of the records that they were set back in like the 1980s, a couple set in the 1950s. I mean, the Lions were breaking records from those years. I'm telling you, there's signs. This is not a same old Lions. This season was not. If this ends, this season was not a fail at all. I know it started out shaky. I know it started out 1-7. But the way that this team, or 1-6, I should say, the way this team has responded, though, this second half of the season, I think it's only going to go up. And I understand there's not enough momentum that goes, season to season and whatnot, but I just think that this could set the tone for next year in terms of just the culture. We have a different expectation now. Our expectation is to win 9, 10, probably beyond that. Dan Campbell even said it. Our goal is to win the division next year. 4-1 in the division. I mean, no other team in the NFC North has a 4-1 record against divisional opponents. Another spectacular performance for Jared Goff. 21 of 29, 255, 3 touchdowns, only sacked once. Quarterback rating of 133.5. And the game against Carolina, Lions showed no life in the run game whatsoever. They respond with a rushing performance that had not been seen since 1980. 265 yards on the ground, averaging 6.8 yards per carry. And Jamal Williams, the bell cow on that, 22 for 144 and a touchdown. It was really nice to see DeAndre Swift getting back into the mix more. He had double-digit carries for, I believe, only the second time this season. He also scored a touchdown, rushing and receiving. So it was good to see him, getting even more healthier and used more in the game plan. Jameson Williams had that really long 40-yard run, but that was it. Like, they're trying to get Ben Johnson is trying to get Jameson involved more, and he even said it in his press conference. He's trying to. He thought it would just click a little bit more for Jameson at this point, but I'm not concerned about that. I get it. He's been away from football for months, and I know he started playing. I think the Jacksonville game was his first game, but because he's kind of behind, that game speed. So you're basically, in my opinion, you're basically starting from training camp or from install in rookie mini camp and all that with him. So being able, because it's different taking mental reps than it is actually taking physical reps. So I think it's just natural that he's behind, and I get Ben Johnson's point. So this is more of like a next year thing. Jameson Williams should be ready to go, and he's probably, I think he's going to replace DJ Chark or someone like that. But what am I kidding? Lions have a legitimate shot here in the last week of the season. If Seattle can lose to the Rams, this team, it's win or go home. That's why it's on Sunday Night Football, I think, which I thought was interesting, by the way. I'm looking at the schedule, and I'm thinking, okay, well, it would make sense for the Lions-Packers to be flexed to Sunday night on NBC. But then I thought, okay, well, it only depends if Seattle loses to the Rams. But then it's like, okay, well, if the Packers win, then they're in, basically. So I think that's what I honestly think it was put on Sunday Night Football. I think Rodgers was really the main attraction that they're looking for. But just think about this. If the Lions go into Lambeau and they spoil the Packers party, they spoil it. Lions end up with they'll end up with a 9-8 record. Think about how much it would mean if this team, playoffs or not, finishes with a winning record, 9-8. I think that just shows how much the culture has changed in just 2 years. 3-13-1, team 9-8 now. I think it shows something, and like I said, hopefully carries over to next year. No guarantees, but I think that puts us in a legitimate chance or not chance, but I should say a legitimate position to possibly compete for the NFC North title next year. This game could be a passing of the torch. I think it could be. If the Lions break Rodgers like they've broken other teams this year, broke Justin Fields, broke the Giants, broke the Jets even, this could be a coronation. Or not a coronation, but a passing of the torch. Now think about that. Think about, when was the last time we had a team legitimately competing for a division title. And I understand the Lions luck has not been on their side over the last 30 years. Brett Favre has been in the division. Obviously, you have Rodgers. You had those Minnesota Viking teams of the late 90s, early 2000s. You had the Bears defensive teams in the 2000s. Lions have been kind of unlucky a little bit with having some of the greatest players, the greatest quarterbacks of all time playing in the division. That's, I think, part of the reason why it's been so long since they've won a division championship. But a win over Green Bay on Sunday could possibly have them pass the torch. Now, Dan Campbell's made it very clear. If the Lions find out, that Seattle lost or Seattle won, they're out of the playoffs, that doesn't matter. They're still looking to win this game. They made it very obvious. Because I think Dan Campbell knows how important this is to set up for the future. I think he understands that this could possibly be a passing of the torch. In Lambeau, freezing. Rodgers saying a couple weeks ago, we got 2 dome teams coming in. They demolished the Vikings last week. They beat up. It was a close game, but they eked out that win over to the Dolphins. Rodgers coming in hot. He's got all the confidence in the world. 2 dome teams coming in. Yeah, but he admitted in the press conference, this isn't the same old Lions. See, even Rodgers knows. Bringing pressure more. Better quarterback play. Run game was excellent against Chicago. And Rodgers has, see, the thing with Rodgers, and we saw it in the first quarter for Justin Fields, how he was able to dominate in the run game. He had that 60-yard run. Bears offense was clicking early, and then the Lions just buried him. They made their proper adjustments, and Justin Fields, he looked like he was a little bit banged up as well. We all know this. We all know Rodgers is very underrated with his legs. He's not a Justin Fields type, but if he escapes the pocket, he can start using those legs to get first downs and whatnot. Lions must contain the outside edges. Oh, and speaking of the outside of containing the edges, I noticed the whole game. That was what the Lions really emphasized. Containing those outside edges. You saw, they had 7 sacks. There were some play action times where, like Aiden Hutchinson on the outside, he didn't bite on any play action. I think like they did against Carolina. He was right there to greet Fields. And Fields was a little surprised that he was there, and he would get sacked. That's what happened on some of those plays. He was sacked 7 times. For a Bears offense, they gave up. It's like we made the Bears quit on offense. That's how dominant a victory it was. You got to remember, too, these dominant victories don't come around much in the NFL either. Just in the NFL in general. The fact that the Lions have had multiple dominant victories like this, and I'm not saying that this is going to be a dominant victory at all on Sunday. I'm not. But I think the Lions match up well against the Packers. You got to remember, if they don't have Rodgers, this team is not good. Yes, their ground game's starting to improve. And that's something that's been, honestly, a weakness kind of the whole year for the Lions, is defending the run. I expect Aaron Rodgers to pound that rock. Overall, on the season, he hasn't been on the same page with his receivers as he usually is. That has gotten better in the last month or two of the season, of course, when it matters most. But this stuff happens every year where Rodgers acts like he's not interested or he's punted on the season, and a lot of dysfunction with his receivers and dysfunction with LaFleur and not liking the play calls, to then, at the end of the season, he's back. He's in the playoff race. They could get in with a win, that kind of thing. Lions got to end that. They got to show why they're the brand new Lions with a victory. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Seattle wins and they're eliminated from the playoffs. That doesn't matter. This is about showing the nation, ending the season with a winning record. Showing Detroit sports fans, showing a national audience that we are the brand new Lions. We're not the same old Lions. We're not choking away games. We're not soft. We're not letting teams roll over us. We're a different Lions team, a brand new Lions team. And that is the culture, what I think Dan Campbell was brought in to form. That is going to rub off on a lot of players if they win this game. So then if the Rams lose, I guess one good thing for the Lions is that they would pretty much have a top 5 pick. But I'm not concerned with draft picks right now. Even if the Lions are eliminated from the playoffs, I still want them to win this game. This is the biggest Lions game that we've had probably since 2017 when it was Bengals-Lions. I think Lions win, they keep their hopes alive, but then they lost in Cincinnati. I remember that game. Ooh, it's going to be exciting. I will be watching that game. Shout out to Mark Lane, former camera guy, producer for local TV. He worked with Matt Derry and some of the other local celebrities over the years. I'll be watching it at his house. Speaking of a local celebrity that he worked with our good friend of the podcast, Matt Derry, for a number of years as well. Able to see the Diesel, Matt Derry, a couple days ago. And good to catch up with him. And he's doing well. Went out to one of his friend's golf places in Rochester Hills called Tea Times, an indoor golf simulator. You can get food there and all that as well. Brand new. If any of you folks are from the Rochester area and want to check it out, right off of Rochester Road. Tea Times, it's called. Really fun. We had a good time. Good food too. All right. Let's wrap this up with talking about Michigan and TCU and a little bit of Harbaugh news as well. Disappointing ending for Michigan. I think they kind of beat themselves 51-45. It didn't help that J.J. McCarthy threw 2 pick sixes. Obviously 2 defensive touchdowns. If those are taken away, Michigan probably wins this game. And then I found it funny how the season pretty much ended on a bad snap. Oh, he has trouble with the snap. JJ wasn't ready for it on 4th down. One more play, possibly. And then there was like a they thought maybe targeting on the last play. No, it wasn't targeting. The one that really hurt, though, was I believe Roman Wilson caught the touchdown, but then they called him down at the half-yard line, and then Michigan fumbles on the next play. Ouch. But they called him down. And it was obvious that he was into the end zone. I don't know what they were disputing with him being down. I thought it was very clear. But Michigan just couldn't punch it in. And it was kind of at that moment where I was like, maybe this might not be Michigan's day. I thought when Edwards had the 54-yard run to begin the game, I was like, man, Michigan's cooking. They're probably going to beat up on TCU. Then they held them. Because remember then, Michigan went for it on 4th down and they didn't get it. So TCU had the momentum. But I got to say, so, my prediction last week was if you shut Max Duggan down, you shut the whole team down. And Max Duggan was not the reason why TCU won that game. 14 of 29, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 2 picks. Then he threw that 76-yarder to future NFL wide receiver Quentin Johnson on 3rd down, like towards the end of the game. That kind of iced it for TCU. But, gosh, they ran for 263 yards on the ground. They slashed Michigan in that. Amari DiMercato with 150 to lead the way. Quentin Johnson, 163 yards. It was good to see Ronnie Bell and Roman Wilson, both over 100 yards. So they definitely went through the air. I mean, JJ 343 yards. there were some throws that I was kind of like, what are you doing, JJ? Obviously the 2 interceptions and some others, but then there were some where, they dialed up such a beautiful play call that it was leaving these wide receivers wide open. I didn't think that I knew this game was going to be a good game. I just didn't think this would be like a track meet. I didn't think it'd be this high scoring. And, I don't know. I just think it was just another disappointing performance by Michigan. I mean, you felt like the entire nation thought you'd win. They're gonna run all over this 3-3-5. And Edwards had 119 yards, but he had 54 of them on one carry, on 23 of them. So, I didn't think they ran the ball like crazy well. Even though Edwards had over 100 yards, he had to work for all those 100 yards. But yeah, like I said, I just think now Jim Harbaugh, 6 straight losses in bowl games. And this was the year. Like, this was the year that Michigan was better. Last year, there was a lot of doubt if they were going to beat Georgia. This year, there was a lot of confidence that they'd beat TCU. And I don't think Michigan fans were expecting it. Nobody was expecting this, except maybe TCU. And now it's TCU Georgia in the national championship. How about that other game? You remember how last week I said this would be one of the greatest college football playoffs ever? I think it lived up to it. The 2 closest semifinal games ever. 1 point and 6 points. Man, I felt bad for Noah Ruggles against Georgia. The stroke of midnight. That kick he just shanked. I felt bad for him. Ruggles is an excellent kicker. The whole season riding on that kick, and he shanks it to the left. I mean, it wasn't even close. Man, Ohio State played really well, too. They really hung with Georgia. Great game plan. Getting guys open. Ryan Day was fired up. I've never seen Ryan Day more fired up in a game than that. Oh, tough for Ohio State. I actually was cheering for Ohio State in that game. I thought for a minute it'd be Michigan-Ohio State. I was like, if Michigan hangs on TCU, because I thought at the next game, I was like, well, I think Ohio State has more of a shot against Georgia than people think. That would have been amazing, Michigan-Ohio State for a championship. Wouldn't want to play Ohio State again, but regardless, we are, just living in fantasy world. But yeah, Georgia, TCU. I think the magical run for TCU comes to an end. I think Georgia repeats. Stetson Bennett rides off into the sunset, and Kirby Smart becomes now the preeminent coach in college football, with back-to-back championships. I think that'll happen. But I wanted to also address. So now, after the loss, there's been some speculation that Harbaugh could be going to the NFL. There's been talks about him going to the Denver Broncos after they fired Nathaniel Hackett. There's also been talks of him going to the Carolina Panthers. Then this whole investigation comes about him with recruiting violations during COVID and then other stuff that was happening this year and suspension stuff, and then now he could be suspended for multiple games and this and that. So, like, I'm the guy, I don't like to speculate at all. But I just wonder, and look, don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with fielding calls. I know this is a different sport. Basketball, Izzo had talks with going to the NBA. He had talks with going to the Cavs and all that. There's nothing wrong with at least having talks. But it's just because, if it's a good opportunity, you might want to take it. That's what I think. But the thing that I just don't understand is that how Harbaugh has always said, I want to stay, I want to be at Michigan for a long time. And, I love this place. I honestly think this NFL stuff he's just fielding call. He's just seeing, maybe, is it a good opportunity? Maybe not. But I really think Harbaugh's heart is at Michigan. I do. Played at Michigan. He's going to be going on, I think this will be his 9th season coming up. Yeah, in 2023, yeah. So, he's been to 2 college football playoffs. He's won 2 Big Ten championships. He's beaten Ohio State twice in a row. But Jim Harbaugh is always about getting that new challenge. Left Stanford for the NFL, then left the Niners for Michigan. After 3 or 4 years, does he just need a new challenge? Or is he just fielding NFL phone calls just because he is, just wants to see if, the interest level's there and if the situation's right in Denver or Carolina or wherever else he's looking? I also wonder, too, and look, I don't know I don't really know, a ton of minute details with this investigation. I don't know how serious this is, but we've seen coaches, bolt schools before to the NFL when investigations are going on. And big one was Pete Carroll from USC going to the Seahawks, where he's been ever since. It doesn't seem like it's one of those situations where it's as big as that or as severe as that. So that's just one option I threw out. I'm not saying that's what it is, but you never know. You never know in today's world. So, I think this will eventually all blow over. They were a little bit more minor than I think some other schools have done in the past. And honestly, I think Harbaugh's set at Michigan. I think he really wants to, be here for a while. And it's like his dream job. It's his dream job. I've been learning all about Michigan football history, and I'm reading this book End Zone by John U. Bacon. It's actually a really good book if anyone out there listening wants to take a look at it. But it talks all about the history of the Michigan athletic department, and then kind of like when the university hired Dave Brandon as athletic director in the early 2010s, and then how that kind of de-escalated and how guys wanted to get him out and then hire Jim Harbaugh as head coach. They got Brady Hoke out as well. It's a whole, it's 450 pages. It's a long book. But I've been learning a lot about the history behind Michigan football with that. And, and even in the book, Harbaugh had always made it clear, like, he wanted to return one day, like when it was right, but, and I just don't see Harbaugh leaving. They pay him a heck of a lot of money. He's at home. It's where he played. Unless this, I don't know how, like I said, I don't know how serious this stuff is. I don't think it's very, very serious, like the USC stuff with Pete Carroll and all that. But it's it'll be interesting to see what transpires. But I don't think it's gonna happen. All right, so it's gonna be a big week, especially for the Lions. Make the playoffs or not. We'll definitely be talking about them next week. And gosh, I wanted to talk Pistons last week. Didn't really have time to fit it in, but possibly some Pistons talk. And then Tigers are made a big move, trading Gregory Soto. We'll probably get into some Tigers mix later in the next month or so. So as the boys of summer are starting to get closer to spring training and all that. I know there's not a lot of excitement behind the team, but it's always fun to talk about the future. Sometimes with Scott Harris now as GM as well. Make sure to tune into all the other podcast content on the podcast network. There's Doc and Jock, the Michigan podcast, the Fan Report talking Pistons and Lions and all that as well, and the wrestling podcast. Always fun to listen to with AEW and WWE and all that as well. Go Lions. Like I said, they got to win. They have to win. It means so much for the future. Even if they don't make the playoffs, a win means a lot going into next season, I think, as well. Thanks again, folks, for tuning in. Go Lions, and make sure to tune in next time only on Open Mic Night.